We fight to protect the people that we love.
Crisis on Earth X. Crossover event starts Monday, November 27th.
Hi there, this is Joshua Jokno for Xeno Creatives, and today we are going to look at the CW's massive 4-show superhero crossover entitled Crisis on Earth X. Now, Crisis had definitely made its mark on the superhero television landscape, something that, in my opinion, not even Smallville had been able to attain. Now, it had been, well, I wouldn't exactly say that it's unfortunate, but I would actually say that it is rather timely that it came out alongside DCEU's Justice League that had not exactly garnered positive reviews. Now, Snyder and Whedon's Justice League did not fare well within the box office, being received with mixed reviews in its initial release. And within its week in cinemas, the critiques started to lean towards highly negative feedback. On the other hand, Crisis on Earth X garnered mostly positive reviews across the geek community, something that this review will attempt to justify. But let us not stray into a rigorous comparison between the DCEU and the CW DC universe, as they are, after all, two separate entities. Unlike the past Invasion crossover, Crisis on Earth X bears a different format. It has its own title card and does not contain itself within the Arrowverse show within the time slot that it is in. As Stephen Amell, the Green Arrow himself, had said, it is like a 4-hour movie. Let me say this, whatever it is or whatever bad rep that the Arrowverse had gotten over the past months, over the past years, because of the showrunners' decisions, because of the writers' creative decisions, it definitely makes up for it. I mean, Crisis definitely makes up for it in a big way. The character relationships are tighter. The storyline is even tighter. It is not contrived. It has very good development. It is seamless. It is effortless, and the action, let me tell you, eye candy for all of the geeks out there. For every comic book out there, I am willing to look past the momentary pauses wherein the superhero had to stop and make a superhero pause. But let me tell you this, it's actually fun to see it. Now, for a little bit of comic book history. Crisis on Earth X is something that the CW writers did not exactly dream up. It is based on the character from DC's complicated but nevertheless awesome and spectacular multiverse. As with the CW storyline, Earth X, or as referred to in DC canon, Earth 10, is a world where the Nazis had gained the upper hand in the Second World War. This was made possible when Kal-El, not Kal-El, the only survivor of a dead planet, crash-landed into Czechoslovakia. The Nazi scientists reverse engineered the pod to become a weapon to secure victory in World War II. Insane, right? Well, it gets even crazier. Now, with Kal-El in the fatherland, he was raised to side with ideas of Adolf Hitler, thus upholding the dictator's aspirations of Aryan race domination through genocide. Alongside a team of superpowered individuals, Kal-El, who had been given the moniker Overman, leads the new Leichmann, now Earth's 10 counterpart to the Justice League, who would stop at nothing in defending the Reich. The new Leichmann is composed of Leatherwing, Overgirl, Brunhild, Blitzen, and Underwater Man. However, the comic book has it that Kal-El began regretting the allegiance to the Reich as he was driven by guilt with all of the atrocities of the Nazi regime. In the CW crossover, we get to see only Overgirl, who is uber evil, Dark Arrow, who is not in the comic book universe that we know of, and the Reverse Flash, not Blitzen, again Reverse Flash. And note, this is Harrison Wells' Reverse Flash, direct from Earth 1. Now let us jump into the specifics. What I really liked about this crossover is its penchant to jump right into the action. Although I did not appreciate much of the foregrounder to it, wherein there had been a lot of focus on the personal relationships, on the love stories between Barry Allen and Oliver, Barry Allen, and Iris West, and then Oliver Queen and Felicity Smoke. I mean, of course, it's an acquired taste. The pairings are an acquired taste. We do know that Barry Allen and Iris West definitely ends up in the comic book canon, and Oliver and Felicity are, well, somewhat of an acquired taste, primarily because it is something that only the writers had decided upon in the show. So it's not necessarily in the comic books. The source material, of course, will have the Green Arrow and Black Canary, which is Dinah Lorna Lance, pair up and eventually marry up in the comic book. But of course, this is a different iteration. It's a different universe, so we will have to bear with it. Now, one of the highlights in the crossover is the Nazi attack, or the SS attack, in Iris and Barry's wedding. And it was a lot of fun to watch because the action there was really good. The fight scenes were just spectacular. You see Vibe using his powers to teleport or to breach Oliver into the balcony where the Dark Archer is. You get to see Supergirl perform a Hulk clap. You get to see a lot of Kid Flash action, wherein the Kid Flash would catch bullets and throw it back into the guns. You'd be seeing Alex Danvers and Sarah Lance, the White Canary, team up to take down Earth X Prometheus. The scene itself, or the whole wedding sequence itself, is an eye candy for a lot of those people who are really itching for good action in a comic book series. Again, it is something that Smallville, in their attempt at justice, this episode that I remember watching, had not even been able to attain, or something that would pale in comparison. But of course, to compare the two would be rather unjust. I'm just saying that the action here in the crossover is tighter and more gratuitous for comic book fans. So we see the Nazi attack in the wedding, and we're thinking, God, this is spectacular. God, it looks really good on cam, and you see a lot of. I mean, even Killer Frost has her own moment here, wherein she creates an ice sword and brandishes it, and then kills. Well, we can only assume that she did, because after all, she is an anti-hero, and kills Nazis with it. Firestorm blasts a lot of Nazis. And Heatwave, being Heatwave, burns a lot of them. So it's really gratuitous for the comic book fans who are really action fans as well. Now, another thing here that is noteworthy is their usage of Prometheus, of Earth X Prometheus. A lot of fan speculation had it during the first chapters or the first episodes of Arrow season 5, wherein the Prometheus reveal, the identity of Prometheus, would be a twist on the Flashpoint arc, wherein we'd actually see Prometheus being revealed as an alternate version of not Adrian Chase, but of Oliver Queen's longtime best friend, Tommy Merlin, who died in season 2. Here, the writers had taken liberties into granting that fan decision or fan theory, and they actually brought in Tommy Merlin from another timeline and put him in the Prometheus costume. So we can only assume that here in this in Earth X, the Prometheus had long been in the business of killing for the Reich, with Tommy Merlin in the mantle. So that's a lot of treat for a lot of comic book, for a lot of the series fans out there who had speculated that Tommy Merlin would actually be Prometheus in season 5, when in fact it's Adrian Chase. So it actually brings a lot of impact to the characters. It brings a lot of emotional tension between the characters of Oliver and Tommy Merlin of Earth X, because after all, these are two people whom we have seen to have really bonded together in season one. And by the time that season one had ended and Tommy had died, you know, Oliver had been broken about it. And even before this, this death, Oliver and Tommy had been at odds with each other, primarily because of Tommy not approving of Oliver being the Green Arrow, or at that time, the Arrow, or as fans will remember, the Hood, who was a bloodthirsty, bloodlusting vigilante out to get all of the bad people in Starling City. So there's this scene in there. There's this scene in the crossover when you see Tommy Merlin talking to Oliver Queen of Earth One, saying that he had in fact been at odds with all of the Reich, with what the Reich is doing, at odds with what has happened to him in Earth X, only to be found out that everything is just a ruse. Everything is to expose Oliver as a weakling who's not willing to assume what should be done. So in the end, of course, we already know, for those who had already watched the crossover, Tommy Merlin had died. Now, one thing that I'm really thrilled about this review, I'm really thrilled about disclosing in this review, is how they handled the doppelgangers in Earth X. We already know through the various promotional photos that that Supergirl will meet her counterpart Overgirl, and Oliver Queen would be meeting up with his doppelganger, the Dark Arrow, and the Flash would eventually be coming face to face again with his longtime enemy, the Reverse Flash, or the Reverse Flash of Earth One, or specifically of Season 1, which had caused him a great deal of headache. But what the writers had done here is that they brought these characters as some sort of an antithesis to our Earth One counterparts. So they are actually the dark reflections of these characters. Let me go into detail. Supergirl, Green Arrow, and the Flash meet their dark reflections through Overgirl, Dark Arrow, and the Reverse Flash. The confrontation between our CW leads is crucial not only for the show's star power, but for each of the heroes' personal struggles. For the want of better terms, the writers had been brilliant in pitting together Kara and Oliver's deadly doppelgangers against them, not just because they are the evil versions of themselves, but because they are the reflections of themselves. We see them as the embodiments of Kara and Oliver's fears since their decision of taking up their superhero personas. With Kara, Overgirl is the possible fearsome result of assuming and declaring the almost endless power that she truly possesses, something that had been explored in various Supergirl episodes. Oliver, on the other hand, had always struggled with his penchant to kill due to his unshakable trauma from those hellish 5 years. Earth One Oliver had resorted into not killing after Arrow's freshman season when Tommy died. He wanted to author himself anew. He wanted to become something else, as the narration goes, a beacon of hope in a darkened world. So when he meets Earth X Oliver, there is an unspoken fear there. There is this perverse thought that looms in the air that this could have easily been him or become him on this earth. That with just one wrong thought, it's easy to fall prey to the delusions of murderous grandeur. With The Flash, do we really need to expound on it? The writers have done a good job in screwing up with Barry Allen by bringing in an old foe who had caused him so much grief and bad decisions. Now, apart from the metaphors, or apart from the doppelgangers being metaphors of their darkened or their dark selves, what's good about this, about the first two parts of the crossover, is that it established it established a dark world wherein we could easily be in. I understand that comic book is separate from politics. I mean, let's not try to mix the two together because it usually has bad effects or dire consequences. But the crossover comes at a very crucial time for the United States, wherein it is faced with the presidential propaganda of making America great again, and we see tinges of white supremacy there, if not outright, wherein the leaders of the country are more than vehement or more than willing to pit its people against each other if they are of a different race. Here in Crisis on Earth X, they have taken quite a comical approach to it, wherein in Earth X, the Nazi forces had actually won the battle. So in the establishing part, or specifically in the first minutes of the series, or of the massive crossover, it had already been established there that this is a darkened world, and if should people, or should we continue on with this agenda of white supremacy, our world would end up just like the world that Earth X is currently living in. So that's what's so good about this crossovers. And of course, let's look at the little nitty-gritties, or at the little things that the crossover had brought to us. It had taken a lot of the personal relationships, specifically the Oliver and the Felicity relationship, stuck it in there, making Felicity not want to marry Oliver. Some are not. Well, a lot of the comic book fans are not fans of the Olicity pairing. I, for one, am not a fan of it. But here in this crossover, it makes complete sense, especially wherein there is another layer to Felicity's character of being of a Jew, and her grandparents surviving the Holocaust. So there is much impact with her being in this crossover, unlike what other people would say that she should be killed in the crossover altogether. And of course, we see Barry and Iris trying to basically build, or trying to get married, and not being able to do so because of all of the superheroics that have been going around in their lives, which had been a central problem or a central challenge in their relationship in The Flash. And we also see Kara and her sister's relationship, wherein both of them are recovering from bad breakups. Her from Mon-El, whom she found out to be alive, and not to be alive only, but also married. And we see Alex interacting with Sarah Lance, who have the same compulsions. Basically, both of them are into girls, and both of them are girls. So there's a lot of fun there. But what I'm trying to say is that what the CW crossover had managed to pull off is that there's this big thesis, or there's this big statement there, that this could all happen in the immediate future if we are not careful, if we are not sensitive enough to our neighbors, if we are not sensitive enough to the cries of the country, of the America as a country. And then there's this pre-established relationships across the other CW shows, which ties up quite neatly into the narrative. So there, it's a combination of the political, the personal, and the comic booky, or the comical. And I think that's what made this crossover so much viable, so much poignant, so much pointed. It had caused quite a stir in the comic book community, not just because it's the most, it's the relationships within it are better compared to its DCEU counterpart, but because the relationships here are pitted against, or are put at stake with a larger threat, with a larger political threat. And I think that's what makes the CW's Crisis on Earth X so much better, or well, not so much better, but more pointed, than the other shows taken separately. So we'd be coming back with the second part of the review, because right after this review, we'd be doing another round of this review, which will include the Flash and the Legends of Tomorrow segments of the show, wherein basically all hell had broken loose. And it's fun because the Flash and the Legends of Tomorrow is more of there's a group dynamic there that can easily be seen in Arrow and Supergirl, but not so much, primarily because they are more focused on the individual characters. But with the Flash and Legend of Tomorrow, there are individuals, but they're thrown into a lot of teamwork. So it's very interesting to see how it climaxes to those segments, and how eventually it gets resolved. But of course, as the viewers of the crossover had probably already managed to know, there will be a big death. There will be two weddings. One of them is a surprise wedding. If you could still manage to be surprised after all that had transpired in the crossover or in the past Arrow episodes. So that maybe one thing that I could leave you with is that the first two parts of the show's crossovers is spectacular because of, number one, the action, number two, the political undertones that it had explored, and number three, primarily the personal relationships that came within these two episodes. So with that, I bid you goodbye, and I hope you could catch us again on the next two episodes. So again, this is Joshua Jochno for Zeno Creatives, and do get your eyes peeled for the next batch of reviews. Thank you and goodbye.